Morning, homesteaders and gardeners. Today is a beautiful day. It is early April. It is sunny. It was cool last night, down in the low 40s, but we should be on the up and up. And we're going to talk about planting in containers for summer. So I've got a bunch of containers, not a bunch, but I got a few containers that I want to plant today. And I think it's a good opportunity to just show you what I like to grow in my containers and typically what does really well in them. Plus, we have a new container back here that we got, so we're gonna test this guy out and see what it does for the year. All right, so I'm gonna show you this container here that we got. This is from Vivor, and I'll flash a code up at the bottom that'll give you, I believe it's 5% off, and there'll be a link in the description on where you can go to their website to get something like this. And it's not too bad. I mean, I wanted to build something like this myself. I mean, truth be told, I didn't really have time. So they reached out to us and we picked one up. It's pretty good. I do like the fact that there's a trellis on it, and that was something I wanted to put on my back porch so you can see we don't have any railings or anything, so it's really limiting us. So this kind of gives us that option, and we're gonna go over it, but more importantly, we're gonna plant in it today. And this will be the first container we go through, and then we're actually gonna go through and plant other vegetables in other containers as well. I believe this is cedar. It's about 2 feet high roughly, maybe a little bit less, and about 8 inches wide. I do wish it was a little bit bigger box at the bottom, just so I could really plant more, because you know how it is, you want to plant more sometimes. And then the one thing I do like is it's actually on wheels. So this will be a really good thing because I can move it. So like in this part of my garden right now, it gets pretty good sun. But if I need to get more sun or I see something struggling, then I can just move it right there on the porch and just roll it over there. So that's going to be a really good addition. And the trellis here, I think it's the right size, like the right height for the size box. It's tough for me because I'm growing in a little bit different than I think the purpose of it's for. And truth be told, it's probably more for flowers, but I looked for a vining flower and I couldn't really find anything I wanted to put on the back of it. So then I started thinking, like, what else can I put on here? And I think what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put cucumbers in the back row, and then we'll just fill in this with some different herbs and stuff like that. So the first thing that I like to put in is I like to put peppers in. And so this is gonna work out really good because this is the Sir Purple pepper that a friend of the show sent us. So I need to keep this one isolated from other ones so I can get the true seed. So this should be plenty of space out here. I'm not gonna put any other peppers in here, and it should get us going in the right direction, and it'll give us nice isolation so we can continue to get that true seed from this, because you can't buy this seed in the store. So at this point, it's just all about, you know, growing it and saving the seeds. So I do enjoy this pepper, but you can see we've got nice healthy roots, perfect timing, not too much of it's going and wrapping around, so we are in good shape there. But you know, this thing, and on the bottom it's actually got a piece of wood that's got holes in it that gives drainage. I'm not sure if it's going to rot out or not. I didn't wrap it in plastic or anything. I figured that I didn't really want to do anything. There was nothing in the directions for it, so it shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to put this plant right up front, nice and simple. And so this will give a good jumping point for this. Again, it's going to be isolated, nice and pretty. And then I started some oregano this year, and it's super slow. So we're actually going to take it and fill in little patches here and there with these plugs. Not expecting a whole lot out of them, but I think this is going to be a good thing too, because one thing I like about this as well is putting it on the back porch, and especially like if you grow herbs in it, we can just come right out here and grab the herbs as we need them. I'm not doing basil in pots this year, but I do like doing basil in pots. Oregano, thyme is another really good one. Cilantro will do good, but it's not that time of year for it, because remember, this is the summer edition. So there's all kinds of different things we can use for it. And then I gotta think about what I want to put here. I'm imagining that these 3 oregano are going to kind of take up this space right here. So I'm not gonna go super crazy, but I do have more space right here. And I believe this plant actually stays smaller, so I wanna get something kind of low. I don't want anything to be super crazy big. And I have been threatening for years to start growing, to attempt to grow a hybrid. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grow a cross-country cucumber hybrid. I don't know the benefits of it being a hybrid. So there is that. I didn't specifically pick it out. I just knew that I normally grow heirlooms and I wanted to do something different. And so since this is gonna be, again, moved so far away, we're gonna be able to get a little bit of isolation from our other cucumbers so we can continue to save seed. So we'll just take our seeds here, and good thing about planting on a trellis is it doesn't really take up a whole lot of space. I mean, we can drop a couple seeds in and then they're just gonna shoot up. They're not even gonna really take out any room. So ultimately it doesn't really matter how much we put in or how much space it's gonna take. So this is gonna work out pretty good for us. And I'm excited to see how this container in particular grows. Like I said, I've been trying to grow or make something like this for a couple years and just really haven't gotten to it. So I know that the trellis is gonna be a little short for the cucumbers, but again, because it's on wheels, when the cucumbers go up and over, we can actually roll it over here, and then that's gonna give the back side of it sun. So when they do come over, then we can get kind of full arcing sun the way the sun hits my porch. So I've definitely wanted to add structure to my porch, and this Vevor box right here is really gonna help add that structure. Otherwise, when we take everything off, it just kind of looks weak and just like a flat piece of wood. So we didn't really want to do that. So, you know, I think this is gonna fill the void for a while. I'm curious to see how long it lasts and like what we can grow in it. So, I mean, if there's anything that you would grow in it in particular, specifically is what I was trying to say, then let us know in the comments, because I'm curious about like a vining flower that's not a moonflower or a morning glory, because they just would spread everywhere. But any kind of vining flower, because, you know, truth be told, especially if I could get like a perennial flower to put in there, then after the season or after my cucumbers die off, then I could turn around and plant something like that in there, and that would be a win-win, because it would be pretty to have a climbing flower. But let's go into the next part of the garden, the container section, and then we'll put a couple plants in there too, and then we're gonna work our way from there over to the greenhouse. And I'll even give you a sneak peek in the greenhouse, let you see what's going on. All right, I got my hands full of tomatoes. Now, I love to grow tomatoes in pots. I think it works out really good, as long as you have a big enough container, and I'd say about 5 gallons at least. And especially if you can drill holes in the bottom and then put them on the ground, and the roots will actually go through the bottom of the pot and then grip into it, so it works out really well. But this is one of the things that I really like growing in pots. It just works out so good. So we're gonna give this a shot this year. Actually, we're not gonna give it a shot, we're gonna do it because we know it's gonna work. But I've got these 3 big pots here, if you can see. And so I need to kind of get the tomatoes oriented in the way from height, from tallest to smallest, so the sun will hit it right. So when we plant our tomatoes, I think variety does matter a bit. I mean, ooh, there's a bunch of roots and stuff down here. So, I mean, I like to do determinate varieties in the containers. They just don't get out of control real bad. And it just seems to be easier to manage. I've tried to do an indeterminate variety before. And if you're not familiar with what that is, that means basically the plant gets really big. So I try to stick with determinate varieties, and it works well for us. And indeterminate, I mean, you just got to build trellises and stuff like that. And I don't really want to do that out here. So for this one, what we'll do is we're gonna just go ahead and pull that bottom leaf off. I'll drop it in the hole. We've already put our pre-planting fertilizer down. And so we're just gonna continue to pot this up to about that top leaf right there. And then we'll get all those nice fresh roots on the bottom. Now, I did say that we weren't gonna plant an indeterminate variety in here, and I may have just told you a lie, and I'm gonna tell you why in just a second. So this one here is the Geranium Kiss Dwarf tomato, And so this is an indeterminate tomato, but it only gets probably supposedly about this high from what I've read. So, but it grows tomatoes like an indeterminate variety would, so it'll continue to give you tomatoes. So we're gonna try this year, and if it works, then this is gonna be a great container variety. So we're really excited about that. And I'm actually gonna keep a couple of these on reserve in case I come across another pot or something like that that we wanna do. So yeah, this is a geranium kissed dwarf tomato, and it should work out pretty good, but we're gonna put this on the end pot because the sun is gonna get more sun this way, because these will actually end up shading it in the middle of the day. So we're just kind of thinking about that. Now the benefit is, because this is an indeterminate variety, as the sun comes across over here, then it'll get shaded and it'll help keep those fruits cool in the middle of summer when this is really gonna start producing. This one will be just about done, and this one will just be starting. So then it'll provide it shade and keep those cool so we don't get a lot of splitting or a lot of sun scald on the tomatoes. Okay, so we're not planting it today, but in a couple days I'm gonna come out here and get this cabbage. I'm just keeping an eye on it, see if it's gonna get any bigger, which I don't think it is. This is another one of those market Copenhagen cabbages, so they're smaller. But we're gonna put an eggplant in here too. Eggplant is another one that I really like to grow in containers. It contains it because the plant gets very big. And as the plant gets bigger, we can actually move the container as we see fit until it's time. So we're gonna rework this little area in front of those 3 pots forward. But those 2 bigger pots in the back, we are definitely going to add in the eggplants to those. So we'll put those in, and those are really good. You know, if we get tired of them, they don't take up a lot of space in your garden because they're in the pot, so we could get rid of them, because sometimes eggplants will give you so many eggplants that you can't keep up eating with them. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about if you've ever grown eggplants. It's a common thing that I hear is like, I don't know how to cook them. And to be honest, I only know like 3 or 4 recipes myself, so there's that. So I need some pruners for the next pot, and I couldn't find them, so I'm gonna have to improvise. I think I'm gonna get some pruners and just tie them around my neck. I think I just need a pruner necklace, end of story. But for this pot right here, see that we harvested almost all of our rutabagas, and then our broccoli actually went to bolt yesterday, believe it or not. So we're gonna go ahead and harvest this. It is not bad to eat at this point, you just have to eat it differently. And I like, when it gets like this, I'll just take it and snip it off and use the florets and eggs or something. Have like an egg and cheese omelet. So it's, you know, it is what it is. So we'll just take it, cut it off. Take the loss, the L for it. And then I'll go ahead and get this rutabaga too, because it's just about done. It's a little small, but at this point, what's it matter? It's just gonna go to seed, and I'm not really prepared to save seeds from them this year. I need the space. But what we're gonna put in here is my next favorite crop to put into containers. I'm gonna take this little plug right here, and this is a yellow squash, and we're just gonna drop it right in the middle. Actually, I'll put it a little bit towards the back, maybe. I don't really want to disturb the roots from that broccoli. I want to leave them in there so they can rot and create water channels and stuff like that. So we'll just mix this up a little bit. And then I'm going to take and drop that right in. And then that's it. So the reason why I like to put these squashes in here, squash, zucchini, even butternut squash works really good in here. Acorn squashes, anything from the squash family, is because as it grows, I can just let it spill over the top of the pot. And so it's not going to really cause any issues or anything like that with the rest of the garden. And if I take this plant right here and it starts to grow, and let's say, if I'm correct, it grows this way out and over, then what I can do is once this starts producing, I can come back out here and put another one in back here. And so when this is done producing, or inevitably what'll happen is the squash vine borer will attack it, then I can pull this up and already have one in the back here to grow. And so that's gonna, you know, be able to take the place of this one. So we're always kind of planting ahead and thinking ahead on that aspect. You could put a pumpkin in a pot this size, that would work well. Even a watermelon would work very well. It just, you know, it just gives it space so it doesn't have to take up your whole garden. Because this squash plant invariably will take up most of the top of this pot. So you can see, if it does that, think about your garden, how much space that's gonna take up. That's exactly why we want to combine these methods for us. So we definitely do raised bed gardening. We do a little bit of in-ground gardening in the greenhouse, and then container gardening. So I'm not a complete container gardening person, but I do find uses for it for certain plants. So we've gone over tomatoes, peppers, herbs, squashes, your, what is it called? The cucurbit families. I believe I said that right. Stuff like that all works really well in here, especially like where this one's placed right in front of the greenhouse. This isn't going to get real tall and then take up sunlight that's going to be needing to get these plants to grow inside the greenhouse. So that works out well. Now I wouldn't really recommend, you can put carrots in there and something like this, and that could possibly be a good use for it. But you know, I know that you could squeeze in a carrot planting depending on what zone you're in or what your weather's like. For us, like carrot planting's pretty much done, but you could squeeze one in, and this pot would work okay for it, but it's not the best plant in my mind to go into a pot. I know there's a lot of people that have been very successful with it. Now I'm not big in putting stuff like beans and trellising plants in them necessarily that grow up, because you got to build a trellis around it, and it just doesn't work for me. I like to keep it as simple as possible, and I know that it can, you know, gardening can get very difficult at times, so I try not to do that. Now, if I needed to plant something like right away, then I would do it. But if I can't or I don't need to, then I can just kind of walk away and just not even worry about it. Just focus on my trellises for that. You know, my cucumbers, beans. Even though I am going to trellis my pumpkins and butternut squash, they're not really trellising plants, meaning they don't actively climb. So anytime I can let them go on the ground and do what they want, that's what I want to do, because that's less interference that I have to do on the plant, less maintenance, less tying up and stuff like that. Just more room for success. But as promised, the greenhouse. So actually this morning I came out here and put these okra plants in. So these are Cajun Jewel okra. They should get about 3 to 4 feet tall. So we're gonna let those do their things, nice and warm in here. And our husk tomatoes that we planted the other day, we planted 4 ultimately. 2 of them made it and they're doing just fine. We had one right about there and one right about here. They did not make it. Why we start extra seeds. So we've got extra seeds going. We'll put them in here. It's not a big deal. We anticipated that kind of issue. As far as our flowers and stuff going in here, they're going great. Now, obviously you can put flowers in pots. That's not a big deal. So we could very well do that with some other containers. These are the mammoth sunflowers. We would not put these in there because they're already going to be tall and they're going to need to be trellised. So we do have a spot picked out for them, but we would not put them in a pot. All of these are just squashes and stuff like that, so they're all free game. So you can see that all of this all of these plants, we've decided beforehand what we can put into a pot or what we can put into the garden or do both with. And then the ones that you can do both, you really got a lot of flexibility about how you can use your garden. And this just helps you maximize that small space even better. And so when we talk about putting peppers in containers too, I just want to be clear, like this size container right here, I would put up to 3 peppers in here more than likely, maybe even 4 peppers. So you can take a container like this and grow a lot more in that versus in your garden, because it's going to take up space. So this is really, you know, you got to use your imagination a little bit and think outside the box. But with you get these big containers like this, you can really plant a lot in them sometimes. Saving techniques, man, that's what it's all about. You know, we want to maximize our gardens for as much as possible around here, especially on Sandy Bottom Homestead. We want to keep as much things growing as long as possible, give it the space it needs, because if we have less crowding, then we're gonna have less disease issues and pest issues, and it won't be jumping from plant to plant. Now, I will tell you this, of everything that I've talked about today, personally, I'm excited about this planter from Vevor. I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing what things grow out of here. You know, keeping it watered is going to be a little bit of an issue for me because of the heat, but I think it's going to be a very good addition to what we grow and allowing us to have readily accessible food right on our back door. I mean, if you think about it, on this one, we'll have peppers, oregano, and cucumbers all together right there. So whenever we want one, we can just quickly come out and grab it and eat it. And the more I think about it, I may actually end up putting a basil plant in there in the middle spot. It's either going to be that or chamomile, either one of the two. And the reason why I might do chamomile is because if I put it in the ground, it could spread wild, and I may not want that. So containers are meant to contain, right? So let's contain our plants and maximize that space in our garden.